I bought a house at 24 years old. I'm going to be going through what that experience was like and how I feel about it a year and a half later. Do I regret that decision? If you are new to the channel, like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot, and I do read all of your comments and I try to respond to as many as I can. I'm not going to be going too deep into the actual process of purchasing a house, but I am going to be sharing what my experience was like and what you can expect from that. When I first signed the loan, I was sweating. I was very nervous, and it was because it's a lot of money. Buying a house is expensive. For broke people like me, you need to finance it, and that is a lot of money to be in debt for. But the first thing you might be wondering is, how much money do you actually need to get the ball rolling and to actually purchase your first house? What happened for me was I needed to come up with a down payment, and they do have different loan options for people who don't have a whole lot of cash, like government assisted loans. You've got FHA, VA, which is like for veterans. Usually for veterans it's 0 down. FHA is like 3 to 4% down. With conventional, you can get below 20%. I think it's 15% down that you could do. No matter which way you go, you're going to be spending thousands of dollars unless you're a veteran to get your foot in the door. Another thing that you're going to need next to your down payment is going to be closing costs. And this is not something that you necessarily have to pay for out of pocket. And when I say that, I mean you can actually say in your paperwork that you would like the seller to be the one to pay for the closing costs, because that is a lot of cash. Usually it's several thousands of dollars. The way I was able to get into a house, I'm going to be showing you the cheap way because I did not have a whole lot of money to be throwing around, so I went the cheapest direction for everything throughout this whole process. And by cheapest, I just mean out of pocket. The way I went with this house, I went ahead and got a government-backed loan, which was the FHA. It was 4% down. I had to pay for the trust money, and the trust money is basically like a down payment for the seller, letting them know that you're serious about actually buying the house. The other thing is going to be the inspection. You have to get your house inspected. That was pretty expensive as well. I don't remember off the top of my head how much the inspection was. It wasn't more than $1,000. That is another thing that you're gonna have to pay for out of pocket. And you can discuss all of this with your realtor and your lender. There's many different resources that you can reach out to get more information on the specifics. You do need to have a really good credit score. So another thing you might be wondering is, what do I need to purchase when I purchase the house? You do need things. You can't just move into a empty house. Even if it's a pre-owned house, they're not going to include very much at all. Usually the seller keeps their fridge, which means you have to pay for a new fridge. You'll need to buy a washer and a dryer. You'll need to buy a dishwasher if you want one of those. I just wash dishes by hand. So another part of the process of buying a house is that, unfortunately, this scenario can occur. You find your dream house. You want it. You want to buy it, it is perfect for you, and you have the money for it. You have the ability to outbid people on it because you're willing to pay over asking. I'm just going to tell you, you might not get the dream house, even if you can afford it, even if you can pay above asking, because somebody might outbid you, and somebody might also be paying in cash rather than through financing. And that happened to me a lot when we were house shopping, is we would fall in love with a house, and then out of nowhere some cash buyer comes in and takes the whole deal away from us. What happened with this house is that we were in a bid war. When I was purchasing a house, The house market was pretty high in demand, and it was a seller's market, which meant that it was very difficult for buyers to get good deals on houses because they were super high in demand. But we were in this bid war. So there were three people. One person was paying cash, another person was paying 20% down, and then there was us. I wanted to stack the odds in our favor. I decided to actually write a letter to the seller, say how amazing their house is, how we love the character. If you're going to write a letter to the seller and you want to buy the house, do not say anything negative at all about the house. You want to keep it all positive. After reading that letter, they may feel a little bit safer that the transaction will go through smoothly and there won't be any issues. And it helps if you can reassure them that in that letter, you can have the seller pay for every single bit of the closing costs. So what we did was, in order to outbid these people, it may have been easier for the other bidders to close the deal without any issues than it would have been for me. So I had to kind of stack up my odds in my favor. I offered a few grand over asking, and that amount was including the closing costs. That meant not only was I outbidding everybody, I was also getting my closing costs included in that. I had my realtor include all of that in the offer. Once you're all settled into your home, you're going to have to do your own lawn care, which is completely different than like living in an apartment where all that stuff's taken care of for you. Unless you have an HOA fee, you're going to be doing your own lawn care. And lawn care is a lot more expensive than I expected it to be. You have to buy a lawnmower, you have to buy a weed eater. I mean, those two alone can cost several hundreds of dollars and several thousands of dollars depending on how crazy you want to go with it. You'll have to buy weed killer. It's hard work. I mean, you're paying for all of these things and you're also working to get the yard done. It is cheaper than what HOA charges, but just keep in mind you'll be spending several hours outside in your yard doing yard work if you decide to purchase a house that does not have HOA. Maintenance is another thing that does come up with a lot of different houses. Our house has had its fair share of maintenance issues. We did work on it quite a bit. The only time we ever needed to hire an electrician was when our thermostat broke. Before I even called the electrician, I tried to do it myself. That's another thing too about owning a house, is you learn to do a lot of things yourself when you don't have a landlord. You have to watch YouTube videos on how to fix things. Some of the problems that we encountered with the house was that the subflooring was a little bit wet. That's not good because that kind of indicates rotting wood. We did prevent that by sealing off the basement to prevent any additional moisture from getting in. That might be a common issue for older houses. This house was actually built in the 1950s, so it is an old house, but I do love it, and it's pretty much perfect for me right now in this time of my life. This is not my forever home, by the way. This is just kind of like a first step into living in a home, making my way through the world. One thing I did not expect when I bought the house was how much equity I would be getting so quickly. I did not realize that my home value would increase a large amount over the past year and a half that I've lived in it. I know that is all dependent on the housing market, but I'm just saying this is something that can happen when you purchase a house. You could have thousands of dollars in equity, and what that means is when you sell the house, that equity is pretty much yours. You get to keep the profits, price difference. If you list the house for $200,000, but you only paid $150,000 for it, and somebody buys the house for $200,000, you get to keep that $50,000. So what made me decide to purchase the house? Me and my wife were looking for an option for where we could move. We did look at apartments. That kind of was the plan, was to get an apartment. We have quite a few animals. We're actually taking care of another person's animal right now. But we do have a lot of animals, and it just kind of made us lean a little bit more towards buying a home. A lot of apartments do not take pets, and if they do take pets, then they charge rent on them on a monthly basis. And that just was not going to be an option for us. Just an additional tip for you, if you do end up buying a house, home insurance is going to be one of the most important things that you get. In case you do get robbed, you basically take a picture of everything you own in the house and just save that on a hard drive or a flash drive or something like that. You can report that as stolen to your insurance company if you do get robbed. You have photo evidence of all the different things. It is important that as soon as you buy the house and get moved into it, that you start taking pictures of everything. After living here for a year and a half, I can say with confidence that I made a very good decision, and I do not regret purchasing a house. I don't plan on living here forever. I actually plan on moving at some point in a few years, but overall, the home ownership experience has been much better than I could have ever expected. I feel like my money is going to a good place and it's not just being wasted. Like, I know that when you move into an apartment, you're spending money to live there. In a house, it's an investment, and you can sell it for profit. So all of this money that you're putting in every month is going towards something that you will eventually own at some point, which does bring me to monthly payments and what to expect and how flexible can some of these lenders be with their mortgage payments. So you might be wondering, what happens if I'm a few days late? Well, the good news is you're not going to get evicted. You can be more than a few days late and you're actually not going to get a penalty for it. So they give you a 10-day grace period. If you're 10 days late, that's when they add the penalty. So if you're a week late, it's not a big deal. They're not going to add it to your credit history. They're not going to penalize you in any kind of way for being a week late on your mortgage payment. So that is comforting to know, and that is for every single month. It's a 10-day grace period. After 10 days, you will start getting penalized. If it gets to a point where it's been 2-3 months, they send you one warning letter and that's it. So if you miss the warning letter and you're late again, then they throw your house into foreclosure. You don't want to be in that boat. But it's nice to know that they're at least a little bit flexible and that they are not incredibly strict. But I do think that's a pretty good perk. You don't have a landlord who is constantly breathing over your neck trying to figure out what's going on in the house. It's just you. But do I regret this decision? No, I do not regret buying a house. It has to be one of the best decisions I've ever made. I hope that some of these tips can help you guys out. If you do like the video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Again, I do read every single one of your comments. I appreciate the support that you guys give, and we'll catch you on the next one.